Everybody. This is Beth Mulcahy, and I'd like to welcome you today to our fourth Facebook Live, handling issues pertaining to the coronavirus pandemic. And it's been a very, very busy few weeks for associations and Arizonans in general. And we thought it would be a really good time today to talk a little bit about what life is going to look like in associations once the COVID-19 spread starts to decrease and once we start to reopen our associations' common areas, and also how we can deal with the economic impact that COVID-19 is clearly going to have on associations. So I see right now we have a number of people here that are already watching. And if you wouldn't mind, if you could which city you're from in the comments section, that will really help us determine the demographics of the people that are here on the call today. And some of you may even be from outside of Arizona, that's fine too. But just let us know you're here and where you're from. Okay, let's get started. Since our first Facebook Live about 5 or 6 weeks ago, we've really seen a lot of change in circumstances in terms of how associations have done business. We've had to close our common areas, and really our entire country has shut down in many ways. Some positive developments that we have started to see in the past week are last week, Governor Ducey extended the stay home order until May 15th, but he gave us some beacons of hope that things are going to be getting back to normal in the very near future. Over the weekend, I think everybody in Arizona was aware that there were protests at the Capitol in Phoenix. And also we had 2 sheriffs in Arizona that are refusing to enforce the stay home order. So clearly there's a lot of unrest right now in our state and our country about the stay home order that's in place. Yesterday, Governor Ducey announced some relaxation in the stay-at-home orders that I'd like to just kind of start to talk about. First, he's accelerating the reopening of shops and restaurants, and also salons and barber shops can reopen on Friday. So I'm sure many people, when they saw that last night, started to contact their different respective barbers and hairstylists to see if they could start getting appointments in the very near future. The restaurants will be able to reopen for dine-in service starting on Monday. And yesterday, May 4th, there were some retail shops were allowed to reopen as long as they followed the state guidelines. So I think the message on this is clearly that things are starting to reopen in Arizona. And I think the takeaway from that for associations is that we need to start planning for the reopening of our association. Now, I'm confident that we will have a lot of different people on the call today who are going to be asking questions like, can we do it now? Can we reopen our pools? Can we reopen our tennis courts? And we're going to be talking about, what are some different suggestions on how to do that today during our call. But first, let's just start out by thinking about what are 3 questions that associations should be thinking about right now if you are thinking about reopening your common areas. I think the first question is, can we reopen the amenity, whatever the amenity is for your association? Then the next question is, should we open the amenity, whether it's the pool, the tennis courts, the shuffleboard courts, the bocce ball courts, the dog park? So can we do it? Should we do it? And then the third question is, how are we going to open it? How are we going to do it in a way that is safe and will protect our residents as best we can as an association? So we're going to be talking a little bit about those questions here this morning. First, I would just like to encourage everybody, please be sure to be checking the governor's webpage for the state of Arizona, Governor Ducey's webpage. At least 5 or 6 times a day, everyone in my office is checking that webpage, the news releases, and also the executive orders, because as we all know, things are changing by the minute with associations and with different, the reopening of businesses in Arizona. And there's a lot of great information for Arizonans on that website so that you're up to speed on the most current information. Okay, so the first question, we had a number of questions submitted before we started this presentation today. So I'd like to just start with a couple of those. So the first question is, how often should an association communicate regarding reopening the amenities in the association? And I know because I serve on my board that this is a very hot topic right now, and we're getting emails from owners and emails from vendors and asking us, why aren't you reopening? What's the timeline? And so I think it's really important now more than ever for associations to be sending out at least a weekly update to your residents as to, the fact that you're keeping a close watch on what the governor is ordering. And that when the time is right and that when we have a plan in place, we will be reopening the common areas and we'll be keeping you notified throughout the process. And what I think is a really great time to do it is typically on Fridays, Friday afternoon, to maybe send a blast email to your residents or maybe post something on your common areas if you don't have everybody's emails. Why? Because as we all know, things are getting a lot hotter in Arizona, the weather is, and people want to go to the pool on the weekends. And so if we give them the answer on Friday afternoon, just letting them know the status and keeping them apprised as to what we're doing, I think you're going to have a lot less angry people and a lot less clients a lot less calls, angry calls over the weekend asking, what's going on the pool, being reopened, etc. So, let's take the next question, which is an association required to reopen certain common areas or amenities once their state's stay-at-home order is lifted? So, that's really the million-dollar question here. So at this point, we are not advising any of our clients to reopen the common areas while the stay-home order is in place from Governor Ducey. As you know, that stay-home order has been extended till May 15th. And we anticipate that based upon the governor's actions late last week and yesterday that, things are going to be opening up, more so on May 15th with regard to associations. So the question is, do we have to reopen things when the governor, lifts the stay order and, starting to allow public pools and access to more things in Arizona not related to associations? And I think that's a really good question. I think the things that we have to think about are, how at risk your population is in your association. I think that you should be, talking to your residents. I'm sure they're already talking to you, frankly, about, do you guys want these things reopened? I think you may have to do it in phases because there are certain things that might take longer pursuant to the governor's orders to reopen, such as gyms. But I think we need to look at it now and really start thinking about what our plan is going to be. So bottom line on that is, do we have to reopen our common areas once the governor lifts the stay-home order? No. I think that we need to look at the totality of the circumstances for each association. Yes, there will be many associations that will want to reopen, their pools and their other amenities that have been closed. But we also need to be carefully looking at what the governor is saying and what the county is saying about what the restrictions are that we need to follow, and are we set up to follow those restrictions? And obviously, if the state or the county is prohibiting something from being opened up, then obviously we have to follow the restrictive orders on that, and we would need to comply with that. How should associations prepare for the lifting of a stay-at-home order? Every association has different amenities, and so every association is going to have a different reopening, right? We have some very large master plan communities where they have actually created like a 20-page document where they have a reopening of the operations, facilities, and amenities plan. And that's needed because they have a public restaurant and they have golf courses and they have tennis clubs with over 30 tennis courts. And so something really formal for them is needed. Then we have other associations where really the only common areas they have are a pool and tennis courts and maybe some shuffleboard courts. And so they're not going to need as formal and a detailed plan. But the best advice I can give to associations is we have a little bit of time here, which is nice because everything that's occurred during this pandemic has been emergency and we've had to respond and react quickly. Right now, we have a little bit of time until the stay-at-home order is lifted on May 15th to really plan out what the future for our associations is going to look like for reopening our common areas. So what I would suggest if I were an association board looking at this issue right now is I would make a list of your amenities that are currently closed. And, let's say, for example, you have tennis court, pool, clubhouse. And I would, draw a line under each amenity, and I would start writing down, what your ideas are on, when you'll reopen it, the timing, what you will need to have, done before you reopen it, what sort of signage you're going to need at the property, whether it's, notifying them that, they need to wear a face mask, it's recommended that they wear a face mask, whether we're encouraging people to wash their hands pursuant to CDC recommendations, requesting social distancing at all times per the governor's orders and CDC standards. You need to come up with what is your plan for each amenity and what sort of signage are you going to have there. If you need to have any deep cleaning done before you reopen these amenities, what sort of cleaning you're going to want to do once you do reopen them and how often. Some associations are saying that they're going to be setting up like a hand sanitizing station, whether it's they're going to rent like a portable sink where people can wash their hands. Other associations are, if they can find it, are going to use hand sanitizer stations or have, wipes, Lysol wipes available for people, antibacterial wipes available. So I think you need to determine for your association what your amenities are and then what your plan is for each one of those amenities. Now, the associations that have gyms, I think my feeling is those will probably be the last thing that is going to be reopened in Arizona. That's just what I anticipate. So you probably will have some more time on that. But I think if you look at some of these states that have reopened already, like Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma, a lot of the national chains in those states, such as, Fitness Planet and some of these other national exercise chains, they're opting not to reopen, even though their state is allowing them to do it. And so I think that is really something to think about, because if those national chains can't meet the requirements or the suggestions that the CDC is placing for them to reopen their gyms, I think that's a really good, kind of a warning to us that it may be really difficult for us to, as associations on a limited budget, to reopen our gyms, until maybe there's been more control over the spread. But again, you're going to have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. So what I recommend on, just in closing to prepare is make a list of your amenities. Write down what you plan to do at each one of the amenities to get ready for the opening, and then once it's opened. Make sure that you're preparing your signs now so that when the opening occurs that you have the signage ready to go. Make sure that you're ordering the supplies that you may need, in order to facilitate having those, areas with hand sanitizer or wipes if you can find them. Do your planning now, because as of May 15th, things are going to heat up and there's going to be significantly more pressure on you as a board to get these amenities opened up again. And maybe now in the next week or so, now's the time to go in and do some deep cleaning and map out what your cleaning plan is going to look like for your association, once the amenities start to reopen. A question that I'm getting often, I'm just going to hit this right on the head because I think this is because it is hot in Arizona, and probably the pool is the amenity that most of you are hearing, the most feedback that owners want it to be opened. How are we going to social distance at the pool, right? And what some associations are doing is they're removing some of the patio furniture from the pool areas right now, and they're distancing the chairs 6 feet apart as per CDC guidelines. That's something that you could be starting to work on right now. I have a couple associations where they are, totally removing the patio furniture. Again, it's really up to you how you want to handle it. I can't say that I am, in favor of one or the other. I think probably I would suggest, because I think that many associations, people will want to stay at the pool. As long as people are social distancing, I think it's fine to keep, a smaller percentage of the chairs in place at the pool. And maybe we want to look at, what the governor is doing on restaurants, right? Because they're saying 20% capacity. Maybe you only keep 20% of your furniture, pool furniture at the pool. And so these are all things that you're going to need to think about and start preparing for as we get closer and closer to May 15th, which is the date that we really anticipate the governor is going to lift the stay-at-home order. Now, of course, things change by the minute here in the pandemic, so the governor could, extend it, but based upon the protests and, law enforcement officials saying they're not going to enforce this, I really think the trend is going to be that after May 15th, a lot of these things are going to start to reopen again. If your state and local governments have different standards and requirements for reopening the facilities, which order should be followed? And so it is confusing because we're looking at the state of Arizona. We've got different counties around the state. Everybody is issuing different guidances. Our recommendation to associations is go with the most restrictive one. So if, there are conflicting orders, you will definitely want to go with the most strict one for your association to follow. How should association fitness centers be reopened when the stay-at-home order is altered to allow fitness centers to be reopened? As I said earlier in this presentation, I really do believe that the fitness centers are going to be the last things to be reopened in Arizona. I could be wrong. But I think that there's going to need to be a plan in place because there's so many different moving parts, no pun intended, with the fitness centers. How do we wipe down the equipment? Will we have to hire somebody to monitor, the interactions of people at the fitness center? Are we going to still have live classes if that's something that your association was, previously conducting? And what will that look like? Will we be able to 20% capacity, and how long can we do it? And so if you have a fitness center for your association, I definitely think that's going to take more planning. You may need to hire additional employees to help you with the staffing on that and to help you wipe down the equipment. Some associations, I talked to an association yesterday where it's just like a gym in the clubhouse where it's, not super high tech. It's just an amenity that, some people use, not that many people use. You're going to have to look at what your needs are for your association. It's not going to be cost effective for you to hire, somebody, a cleaning service person to be there all day, every day. If really the gym doesn't get that much use to begin with, right? And so maybe you just leave wipes and hand sanitizer, and you have a good notice that states what specifically you are and aren't doing in terms of cleaning, and put the burden on the owner to clean the equipment before and after the use, and maybe have a mobile hand washing station there if you don't have a sink with soap and water. Again, it's hard for me to give a cookie cutter one fit for every association in this Facebook Live. I think we really have to talk about it, talk about what your amenities are, and what you plan to do to reopen it, and run it by your legal counsel. Definitely run it by your legal counsel on all of these things, because we're here to help. We're here to limit your liability, and these are tough issues. I mean, let's face it, none of us have been through a pandemic before, so we're just trying to make the best calls that we can and limit the liability for the association. What about pools, tennis courts, dog parks, picnic tables, benches, clubhouses, bocce ball, shuffleboard, horseshoes? Really, once the stay-home order is lifted, we'll have to look at specifically what the governor is saying in his orders, and look at what the county is saying in your respective counties to determine when these facilities can be reopened. My feeling is probably what will happen is that you're going to reopen facilities in the reverse order that you close them. So if the tennis courts were the last thing to be closed, that probably will be one of the first things that you reopen. And that may not be one size fits all. I mean, maybe you are reopening everything but the fitness club, on May 15th or May 16th. But again, just unlocking things and not having a plan is not a good idea. Now is the time for all of us to plan. It's May 5th. We have a good solid 9 days to come up with, what amenities we have, a list, and then what specifically we're going to do once the amenities, reopen, what we need to do before they reopen in terms of cleaning, what equipment might need to be installed, things might need to be removed, what signage needs to be installed, etc. And it's hard for me to comment, about the dog park. I don't know, some of you I'm sure have gates on it, what you're going to have signage there, you're going to have some sort of cleaning there. Again, every amenity association is different. So I encourage you to just come up with your plan, run it by your legal counsel, and be ready for May 15th. How do we handle bridge and bingo in our association, where we have a clubhouse and, every Tuesday we've got bridge or bingo, or, even like potlucks and like some of the social events that many residents really love and rely on for interaction with people. How are we going to handle that, post-pandemic? And I think it's going to be a gradual rephasing in process. And so I wouldn't encourage you to go ahead and get the social calendar right back, up and running on May 6th, have a welcome back party, something like that, because I'm confident that there still are going to be some guidelines in place for social distancing and recommendations to wear masks. I think we're just going to have to look at what our world looks like on May 15th, and maybe we don't resume those things until June 1st or July 1st or August 1st. We're just going to really have to see how things are going in our country and whether or not it's safe to do that. Should an association take the temperature of owners, guests, contractors entering the community? I was on a conference call last week where we talked about this extensively. And, I think it's very difficult to find a thermometer right now for anybody who's trying to find one anywhere. But B, are we putting our employee at risk by, waving the thermometer by somebody's head? And is it even an accurate, reading? There's a lot of people that are asymptomatic. Is this really something that's going to be helping our association? And, I'm really inclined to say no. Putting our employees at risk, if we have any, I think and I think it also gives us some liability as an association. If we screw up or we do something wrong on that. And so I'm really not in favor of doing that. I just don't think that's something that we're encouraging any of our clients to do. What steps should associations take if they have employees when they reopen? Great question. A lot of large master plan communities have a large number of employees that are entering the property every day, working in the clubhouse, working at golf courses, working in restaurants. I really think you need to look at what guidance is from state and local officials. And if you go to the state of Arizona webpage for coronavirus, there already are some guidances that have been issued by Maricopa County regarding restaurants reopening. And, we're just going to have to look at what the guidance is. And, as of right now, we don't know if you're going to have staggered shifts for your employees, or if you're going to have to, require that everybody wear masks. These are all going to be recommendations that we're going to have to look at. So if your association has employees, use the next 9 days or 10 days before the stay-at-home orders is likely going to be lifted to really come up with a plan. And our firm has some suggestions on that. If you contact us, we can help you through that process. Okay, let's switch gears and talk a little bit about associations' finances and assessments, and how the pandemic is going to affect our clients, our associations that we work with, and any associations that are listening in today. Definitely we are going to see an impact on the finances of an association due to this pandemic. I mean, there's so many people that have filed for unemployment. Our firm is right on the front lines because we're assessments from owners on a regular basis. for non-payment of assessments, even before the pandemic. And so here's a couple little trends I'd like to share with you that we're seeing in our practice. First, we've been talking with a lot of associations and management companies since the April 1st assessment became due. And what I'm hearing overwhelmingly from our clients and from associations, management companies, is that they're not seeing that large of decline in owners who aren't paying assessments. Maybe pre-pandemic, they had 1 to 2 to 3% delinquency, and maybe now, after looking at the April assessment, maybe that's increased to like 6 or 7%. So it hasn't been that drastic of an increase. But some things that we need to consider are that a lot of people, received the stimulus money in April. And our firm knows firsthand that a lot of owners told us they were using the stimulus money to pay past due assessments. And so that's a consideration. A lot of people also received their tax return if they, had their taxes before the tax deadline was extended. And so, the April assessment may not be the best indicator that, people small percentage aren't paying post-pandemic. I think what we need to do is look at the May, June assessment payments by owners to determine what sort of impact this is really going to have on your associations. So can we expect the pandemic crisis to affect the association's ability to collect assessments? Yes, I think we need to plan ahead for that. Whether the amount of delinquency is going to go to 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%, we really need to look for trends. And our firm will be reading about this, I can guarantee you. So make sure you're tuning into our Facebook page and that you're signed up for our mailing list so that you're receiving our publications on this. But we're watching for trends. And when we start to see a trend, we're definitely going to be communicating with boards to make sure that you're doing everything you can to limit the number of owners that aren't paying assessments. Okay, so the first question is, how should an association handle residents who are late or delinquent on assessments? Really important for associations right now to be communicating with their owners how important it is to pay assessments and trying to get as many people as possible set up on auto debit. So what do we do with residents who are late or who didn't pay their April assessment? I think that you should have a collection policy in place, and you should be contacting them just like you would in non-pandemic times. I've really heard some kind of troubling things from, a few different, on a national scale. I've heard it on a couple of different websites where some associations are saying, we're not going to collect assessments, and anybody who doesn't want to pay, you don't have to pay, or contact us now if you want to, pay only a portion of your assessments before the owner even contacts the association to say that they're having trouble. I think that is unequivocally the wrong approach here. Remember, we're running a business, and although we are a nonprofit corporation, we have expenses for our respective associations, and we have fiduciary duties to run the association like a business. And so it's business as usual for associations. We have expenses and we have obligations, and we have to maintain the common areas and pay our employees and pay our vendors. And so I think the message should be that we all need to work together. Yes, we understand that this is a difficult time, but we need to keep our property values up in our association. And in order to do that, we need to keep running our association as business as usual. And so just communicating with owners about the importance to pay assessments, encouraging them to sign up for auto debit are really important things that you should be doing. So how do we handle the owner that, isn't paying? Friendly reminder letters are typically the first thing that associations send out. And then a more formal demand letter, typically either from the board or the management company, and then leaning the property once it's delinquent a certain number of days, whatever your policy says. We think it's imperative associations continue with the collection policy. Now, what do you do if you get to the lien stage and the owner hasn't paid, and you're thinking about, potentially turning it over to an attorney to collect the debt. What I would say is, let's be smart, let's be reasonable about the next steps. And so if you are going to turn it over to an attorney, first, if the owner's contacted you and has explained that they are having difficulties, try to work with the owner, try to get a payment plan, try to get them to pay some. If an owner is actively reaching out to you to resolve a debt, don't turn it over to the attorney. Try to work with the owner to get it resolved. If the owner is completely blowing you off and the debt is accumulating, that's going to be a debt that you will want to, move forward in the process and potentially turn it over to your attorney. Right now, due to, the pandemic, our firm is really shying away from doing any foreclosures. We're going to work with the owners as best we can. And so the first thing that we do is we just send a formal demand letter. And, before we even send the formal demand letter, we're doing a credit evaluation of the owner to determine what is the best way to collect the debt so that we're making decisions. And what we really found is a lot of owners are contacting us away once they get our letter, and we're not having to proceed forward with any sort of justice court action or anything like that. So that's a really good sign. And I think one thing that is helping on that is, if you're watching news shows like all of us are, the newscasters, the experts on financial issues, they're all saying contact the people you owe money to and communicate with them about your current status. And I really am finding that is a trend. We're seeing phone calls coming in from owners on that. So, bottom line on how do we handle residents who aren't paying, I would follow our collection policies for our respective associations. If the owners want to do a payment plan, I highly encourage boards to do that. Make sure that the homeowners live up to it. If you enter into a payment plan with them, consider waiving late fees if an owner is in a difficult financial situation. We are suggesting that, but not charging late fee at all is not something we're suggesting. We're just suggesting if it will help us get an owner to pay, that might be something that's found money, and that we would consider waiving late fee if they'll pay in full or something like that. Let's see. Should associations be considering payment plans with residents who have requested leniency? As I said before, absolutely, if an owner wants a payment plan, now is definitely the time to do this. What you may want to do is either have your management company or have your attorney help you write up a written payment agreement. It needs to be in writing, and the association and the owner should both sign it. And if the owner breaches a payment agreement, there has to be consequences. Payment plan with you or a payment arrangement, repayment of the debt. But we need to have you making the current payment, number one, and then even if it's just paying a small portion of the debt, you have to pay something towards that. And that needs to be memorialized in writing, and needs to be checked every month to make sure that the owner is following it. And if they breach the plan, then I think there has to be consequences, such as the file, the owner gets a demand letter from the management of the board, or the file is turned over to the association's attorney. How should an association respond to a resident's request for an assessment reduction if they have closed common area facilities? If I've heard this question once, I've heard this question 100 times in the past 4 weeks. So this is a great question. So you have owners that are under stay-home orders, and they're walking by amenities. It's 104 degrees. Everybody's in a bad mood, right? And they really want to just get into the pool and cool off, right? And they're agitated and angry about not being able to use the facilities. And so a thought crossing their mind is, well, if we can't use them, shouldn't we get a reduction in our assessment? I mean, hey, this isn't fair. We can't even use the tennis court. We can't use the pool, right? And so we're hearing this question often. And the answer the association needs to give is that, the state of Arizona is under stay-home orders, and we're required under the law to have people stay home. And many of these amenities we are required to close for your own health and safety. And although we agree it's unfortunate that we have to close them at this time, there's really nothing that we can do about it. And just because they're closed doesn't mean that our expenses have gone away as an association. And we still have to treat the pool. We still have to, clean the tennis courts so that they're not really dusty when we get back to playing tennis. And, it's an unfortunate situation for everybody, but it's not going to result in a reduction in investments for anybody, due to the pandemic. Surprisingly, when we respond back like that, I haven't had a lot of owners that push back hard. So, of course, we're only about 4 weeks into 5 weeks now into the system order. I mean, the story may be different if we're 6 months out. But for right now, I think people are accepting that response, and they are understanding the association's predicament. Should associations continue to file liens on unpaid assessments? Definitely. We highly recommend that if an owner is not paying assessments and it's the threshold amount or the number of months delinquent that your association has for pursuing, an owner placing a lien on their property, we definitely are recommending that associations exercise that right and lien on the property as notice to the owner that they owe this debt, and notice to any buyers or anybody who's looking at this particular lot or unit that there's money owed to the association. How do we handle owners who are losing their jobs and their income, and maybe they're waiting for their unemployment because there's so many people filing that they haven't gotten their money? I think what we do is we ask people to communicate with us and let us know what's going on. And frequently when we send the friendly reminder letter or the letter the owners are contacting us, I think that associations really need to be keeping detailed records as to who's contacting you, what their contact information is, try to get their phone number, their email. They give you employment information, formal employment information, or if they've been furloughed, making note of that in the file so that we have that for reference. And asking the owner back in with you, in a week or 2 weeks. If they can't pay anything, ask them to, keep communicating with us, and maybe have a tickler for your association, the management company, or your attorney to follow up with the owner. Because what I've found in doing collections for 25 years is the squeaky wheel gets the money. And what I mean by that is that if we are on top of the file and we are contacting the owner and, we're being fair, but being firm that, hey, this is a debt that's not going to be waived and we need to come up with a plan for you to repay it, we're going to get paid. The creditor that, just throws the file in the file cabinet, doesn't look at it, more than once every 6 months, guess what? They're not going to get paid. And so remember that we want to be reasonable, squeaky wheel, but we want to stay in the forefront of this owner's mind when they're just deciding to pay each month. And we need to make it clear that this is a bill that needs to be paid. It's important for them to pay so that they keep property values up on their property. Now we're switching gears to what if the HOA can't pay its bills? I haven't had any associations come to me yet saying this. And so what are some different things that associations can do? And I think probably the associations that were in the category of already being in financial difficulty before the pandemic, these are the associations that are going to be hit the hardest. And so if you're one of those associations right now that can't pay your bills, I think it's really important that you look at, first I look at your accounts receivable, owners that haven't paid. I think you need to be following up with those owners to get them to pay, because let's face it, if you can get some of that money in that's past due, going to enable you to start paying off some of your debt. You may want to look into a loan. There's a number of different banking institutions in Arizona that are doing loans for associations. If you're an association that would like to do that, please call us and we can get you in contact with the different institutions that are doing that. But recognize a loan, is going to require typically a vote of the membership. It takes some time to implement, so it's not going to help you pay the bill that for the power bill that's going to be turned off. And so I probably would look at the bills that you have if you're one of the associations that's in that spot, and communicate with the vendors as to what the situation is, try to get extensions. You may need to cut some amenities to get through this time. But reach out to your trusted advisors, and if there are any associations in this place where you're really struggling in your bills, call me. I will, take some time and help you come up with an action plan to get you out of the situation, and we won't charge you, to do that. Just having somebody to brainstorm with for 10 minutes and think about what are some ways out of this problem. We're here to help you. Other solutions, you may just start to see, like I said, a 5%, 10% decline in the payment of assessments. And that's, our income that we have for associates. So if you're seeing a minor blip in terms of how much money is coming in, we can look at other options for your association. It may not be that you can't pay bills, it's just that you may not be able to do a project you were planning to do, and you may need to push that into 2021. Or maybe if you're going to move forward, maybe you need to contact the city that you live in and see if the city will underwrite half of it through a grant. Or maybe you need to borrow money from your reserve account, which you shouldn't do unless you talk to your attorney or your CPA and your CPA to talk about how that might work and what the repercussions are and how quickly you need to pay it back, and if it's even possible under your documents. And so there's different strategies if you're one of those associations who is going to anticipate that, hey, we're going to have a revenue shortfall. You really need to be looking at what your plan was for 2020 and pivot. Whether it's we're not going to be able to do this year, or we're going to have to borrow money, or we're going to have to maybe really pursue some of those past due accounts receivable owners who aren't paying. Plan needs to be put in place. Otherwise, you're going to hit December 2020, and you may not have enough money, to pay expenses for your association. Another consideration, you have to do a special assessment to help fund. So we're here to help you. If any associations are worrying about their finances and owners not paying assessments, please reach out to us. We have been doing this for 25 years, and I have a wealth of experience and knowledge on helping associations that are in difficulty, and we'll come up with a plan that can help your association get through this difficult time. Okay, let's talk now about some general questions. Some general questions that we have received since the pandemic has evolved would be first talking about meetings, board meetings, annual meetings, special meetings of the membership, removal meetings. We've seen all of these issues come up since the pandemic started. And if you look at our prior videos on Facebook Live, we have a number of questions and answers already on that. One thing I wanted to mention today during our call is that our firm just released a cheat sheet this morning on virtual board meetings. And if anybody is interested in reviewing, you can go to our webpage at www.mulcahylawfirm.com and click on our cheat sheets page, and you can just type in virtual meetings or meetings in a COVID-19 pandemic. If you have difficulty locating, just email me or place a note on the Facebook saying that you'd like us to send it to you and your email address, and we'll be sure to get it to you. But we held off on putting it out there. It's actually been for probably 3 or 4 weeks because we want to fine tune it based upon our experience in running virtual meetings, and probably run, I don't even know, 50, 60, 70 virtual meetings since the pandemic started. And so I'm really starting, we're really good at operating on Zoom, and we've helped boards run a Zoom meeting. And, I've had a very large association on Zoom with over 200 people in attendance. We've had smaller board meetings with 5 or 6 people. We've had medium board meetings. And so I think what we try to do is give you best tips and best practices for how you can have. And so we've implemented all into our new cheat I encourage you to take a look at it. And, you know, if you have any suggestions, we're always open to hearing it. But I think these are some great to help your boards continue on your board meetings during the pandemic. A question that I'm getting a lot is, okay, when the governor lifts the stay order, can we go back to meeting in person? And I think it really depends. You know, my inclination is you're probably going to need to continue to run the virtual board meetings, you know, in May, June, July, possibly August. You know what, it's just fine that we do that, because let's face it, a lot of boards don't meet in summer in Arizona to begin with. And a lot of members go back to Wisconsin and Minnesota and Michigan and, you know, Washington State. And, you know, so it's going to work just fine to continue doing our virtual meetings. Now, if your association wants to do in-person meetings, you're going to look at what the governor and what the county is saying about conducting those meetings. I'm confident that you'll have to have social distancing, and probably recommended for everybody or require everybody to wear masks. So just think about if you're anxious about getting back to your in-person meetings once the stay-home order is lifted. Our community managers and board members encouraging residents to wear face coverings in common areas of the association based upon the new CDC recommendation? And if so, how are they advising these individuals? This is a really good question. So, I mean, it just depends what the state and what the county require. In some counties right now, in other states, they're requiring owners to wear face masks anytime that they are in contact with, could be in 6 feet contact with another person. And I think you're noticing Costco's requiring face masks now, and restaurants are requiring, you know, their workers to be wearing the face masks. In some restaurants, if you're doing pickup of carry out right now, the person that's purchased food should be wearing a face mask in order to go in and get the carry out. So it's going to really depend on what the governor and the county require. But, you know, I think the association's position is that whatever the city, state, county require, that we should, you know, post that that's what the requirement is. If it's recommended, we post that's what it's recommended. We use language recommended. Now, should we have our security officers, you know, on golf carts chasing down people to, you know, issue a citation or a fine for not wearing a face mask? I think that's something that we have the manpower to do, and I would recommend that. But I think that every opportunity that we have to remind owners whatever the requirements are, whatever the suggestions are, we should be doing that. And if the requirements are that people, you know, shouldn't be, you know, entering the clubhouse without it, whatever, you know, we need to have signage that says that and encourage people to do that. Should associations carry out enhanced cleaning of the common areas? This is a tough one. You know, well, first of all, during the next 9 or 10 days, I really think that associations should be, you know, going into those common areas that are closed right now and doing a deep clean to get ready for when the stay-home order is lifted. So if you haven't already done that, you should be doing that right now. And then once the stay-home order is lifted, you know, should we be doing something called enhanced cleaning? I mean, I think that we should be making every effort to clean to C standards, but let's be real here. I mean, we don't have unlimited cleaning budgets, right? And, you know, should we be adjusting our budget to, you know, have $100,000 in cleaning fees in the rest of 2020? I mean, I just don't think that's practical. So I think that we should be making our best efforts to comply with CDC standards and any standards that the state might be implementing, or the county or the city that you live in. You know, and I think that we should be posting at the amenity, you know, what the association is doing, you know, and some associations, they don't have the ability to do cleaning, you know, more than once or whatever. And if that's the case, then, you know, we need to post that this is the plan the association is following. And is there liability for associations on failure to clean? Absolutely. Is there liability associations, even if they clean to CDC standards and somebody allegedly gets COVID-19 from, using our facility, yeah, there is liability. I mean, there's unknowns here with this virus. And so, what we're telling our clients, try to make the best decision possible that you can for your associations. And maybe you need to reach out to your trusted advisors, your management company, your attorney, the company that you use, and come up with a strategy that is going to best protect your association and, look at what your finances are and factor that in as well. What is the board's duty to act to reduce contamination in the community? Okay, this is a tough one. This is a loaded question because, we don't even know 100% what is causing contamination in many of these associations, right? We've had a number of associations where we've had COVID cases. We don't know if they got it at the grocery store, if they got it at the pool. Nobody knows. They could have gotten it just by, seeing their grandchild. And so what's our duty to act? I think that we need to act in a reasonable manner. And I think we can rely back on, fiduciary responsibilities under Arizona law. And that fiduciary responsibility is boards have a duty to act in the best interest of the association. And I think that associations have really stepped up and done the right thing here. We've closed common areas, even though people were yelling and screaming and upset that we closed the tennis courts or, whatever it was that we closed. We did that to protect the residents, the health and safety of the residents. And now with the reopening, we're being thoughtful and we're coming up with a plan for reopening. And it may be a phased plan like the pool where we have signage at the gate and we have hand wash station, or we have hand sanitizer available, or wipes so that people can wipe down the chairs, or whatever the plan is that you come up with. And maybe first you do 20% of the chairs, and then maybe towards July you go up to 40%, or whatever the plan is for each one of your associations. And so what's our duty to act to reduce the contamination? Our duty is the fiduciary duty to act in the best interest of the association. We have to look at the situation we're facing. We have to make the best decisions that we can. We rely on our trusted advisors, our management company, and our attorney, and we move forward. That's the best anyone can do in this circumstance. And I think if you're following those steps, that the board is acting in the best interest of the association. How should board meetings proceed once stay-at-home orders are lifted? We kind of already talked about just briefly. I think that I really do think that boards are going to be, conducting more virtual meetings this summer because people are going to be gone. Hopefully they'll be able to travel home or travel back east or Midwest or wherever they go in the summertime. And I think people are going to be concerned about meeting in groups that are larger than 10 people going forward. And so if you are going to have in-person meetings, make sure that you're following whatever the city, state, county requirements are. Make sure that you're practicing social distancing at the meeting. You probably have to have masks as well once the stay-home order is lifted. Or really consider the virtual meeting. This is a great opportunity right now. We've been practicing. It's working wonderfully. And, it's a great opportunity for all of us to continue down that path. And one benefit of the meetings that I've noticed is that the meetings are significantly shorter than the boards that were pre-pandemic. So that's really helpful because, let's face it, board members have burnout sometimes because of the long meetings and the many challenges they face. How should an association proceed with annual meetings when the stay-at-home order is lifted? Another great question. If you have a meeting that is supposed to be conducted in your association in June, July, August, September, October, I think first we need to what the state, county, and city are saying about large gatherings of people. My thought is it's probably not going to be allowed to have more than 10 people, meeting, even those 10 people will need to be social distancing and with masks. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be possible to have annual meeting in person, before October 1st, my thought, maybe not even before January 1st. And so what I would say is plan with your management company from your attorney to help you conduct an annual virtual meeting. I've probably done 10 via Zoom since the pandemic started, and they have all been successful, really great meetings and short. And we've gotten the things done that we need to accomplish, and we were able to listen to homeowners because it's a time where the owners could talk during the meeting and give back at the annual meeting. So it's working, and I would suggest that associations really consider to continue doing the virtual meetings, at least until October 1st this year, just to protect everybody, to make sure that, we're not doing anything that A, violates the law, and B, that could be harmful to our residents. Okay, a couple questions that I'm in here on, and that's it for the questions that we had that were submitted for today. Let's to some of the questions that we're seeing here on BookBeat. So great to see so many people here. Over at certain points in this call, we've had over 100 people listening at the same time. So that's awesome. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. And I see that all over the valley, East Valley, West Valley, Phoenix. So that's great. So the question is from Steve from Scott. Our HOA's bylaws and CC&Rs refer to board responsibility for the maintenance and upkeep of common areas. Nowhere does it mention responsibility for health and safety of residents. Does enter at your own risk cover us? So great question. So once the governor issues the stay-home order, can we just pop up signs that say, enter at your own risk? I think that many of the signs that we're starting to see associations create that on there, frankly, but they also have other things on there, like please follow the state's orders, whatever they may be. Find out on May 15th whether it's practice social distancing, wear a mask, whatever the final recommendations are that we need to follow. So can we just sign up there that says enter at your own risk? Because really our job as the association is just to maintain, keep the common areas. It's not to take care of the health and safety of residents. Well, I do disagree on that, because even though your CC&Rs may only talk about maintenance and upkeep of the common areas, there's case law, that says otherwise. And so if we look at case law in Arizona over the years, the Martinez versus Woodmar case is one that just pops into my mind immediately. And in that case, associations have a duty to keep common areas safe. In that case, it was a criminal matter where there was a shooting, but I think it could definitely be extended to, the pandemic. And so if we're aware of a safety hazard and the association isn't taking action to, prevent something that could harm residents, owners, guests, I think there is some liability for the association. And so, okay, if you are going to post enter at your own risk, that's certainly your association's prerogative, but I think that you need to go further than that and tell them, what risk they're facing. So if the risk is that you're not doing any regular cleaning, then you may want to stay that, and you may want to encourage people to wash their hands, CDC standards, and add some additional information. And I know there's many associations right now that are looking at, and for them to have to implement, a CDC cleaning procedure just isn't going to happen. And so we have to balance, what those associations can do to protect themselves in these, really challenging times where there is a risk, where there is a health risk for our residents. And so I would encourage you, if you're one of those associations, reach our office. We're happy to give you some advice. Talk about it and determine what could be on that sign that could limit your liability. For many other associations, you're going to have a higher standard of care, and you're going to need to have a plan, especially if you have the financial wherewithal. I'm not saying that just because you don't have money to do this that you shouldn't be. I think everybody needs to be doing what they can to minimize the spread and decisions going forward. Okay, the next question from Kay. In a small community pool with about 20 who use it? Is it possible to post a schedule? Oh, question, Kay. I'm glad you mentioned this because I've been hearing that. So I'm hearing from some associations that they do it a schedule based upon the letter of your alphabet of your last name. And that's a thought, just so that because it is so hot right now in Arizona, that everybody's going to want to jump in the pool, once the stay-at-home order is lifted. I think you just really look at what's going to work for your association. For some associations, it's not going to be that big deal because a lot of their residents leave in the summertime, or maybe a lot of the residents went home early this year, and you're not going to need a schedule like this. But if you have a high-use pool, this might be something that you may need to implement. And so how that looks, I would definitely start talking to your owners, maybe do an informal poll, at your next board meeting, allow owners to provide feedback how they feel about that. Since we've never had, a pandemic before where we've had to, set up a time where we can go into the pool or, based upon their name or whatever, I don't know how that's going to work. It might work really great for some associations, and it might be a disaster for other associations. I think where it's going to be a disaster is where you have a high number of people who want to use the pool when they want to use the pool. It's telling a young family that the only time to use the pool, during nap time for kids, they're not going to be able to go. So I think we're going to need to really think about how this could work, and you might even want to run a trial on it, get homeowner feedback for sure before you would implement this, because they're the ones that are going to complain, and ultimately the board is going to be taking a lot of heat at whatever decision you ultimately make. Okay, this question is from Diane. Should HOA cover or close off water fountains, drinking fountains? Okay, that's a really good question. So when people start to go back onto the common areas, let's say you have a water fountain at the tennis court or at the pool, a lot of people are going to be touching that, right? And that might be something that associations choose to do to minimize, germs on those different things. And so, of course, that boards can consider doing. Another alternative would be, to have a sign there saying wipe it on before you use it, and then having, wipes there. Having a hand washing station or something right near there that you could do. Those are all different choices that the board can do. I do have some associations that are at their tennis courts. They are just, dismantling water fountains, or if they used to bring water in, they're no longer doing that. It's like a large club type tennis facility at a large master community. So it's something that you certainly can do. And I would post down there saying that it is closed, or if it is open, I would request that people wash it down before they use it, or whatever, wash their hands afterwards if you don't have the ability to get wipes there or hand sanitizer there. Great questions. Okay, any other questions missing? Are there any other questions that people have I might have missed? I'm just scrolling up here to see if I'm missing anything. See, I'll go down real quick. See, gosh, it's so fun to see some of our clients here today. Great to see Christy, a client of ours, and Renee from Glen. Thanks so much for being on. It's got some managers on here too. Awesome. Okay, thanks again, Mulcahy team. I love it. Happy birthday. Yes, thank you, Sean. It was my 50th birthday yesterday, so I had a great day, so thanks for saying that. If we open the pool, this is Diane. If we open our pool, what kind of cleaning is the HOA responsible for? And who would be responsible for policing social distancing? This really depends on what amenities your association has. To have a pool with full-time staff, it's going to be a lot harder to wash down those chairs after each use. Most of our clients don't have, they might just have a pool with a gate. And I think that, if you're one of those associations where you're not have staff there and you're not going to be able to hire a security guard, I think that you need to put on your sign what the owner's obligation are. I mean, obviously, let's go back that you're using it at your risk. give suggestions that the owners wipe down the patio furniture before or after use of any chairs. Maybe have a hand sanitizing station there if you're able to find hand sanitizer right now. Do you want to do that? Or maybe if you do that, suggest that the owners use their own wipes, remind them to wash their hands. And so what kind of cleaning is the HOA responsible for? I mean, it's really going to depend on what you're able to do. Maybe beef it up and you bring in a cleaning company to clean once a day or twice a day if you're able to. If you're not able to do that, then you better tell owners exactly what you are and are doing and give suggestions as to what they can do to protect themselves. So I think that's helpful. Who's responsible for policing social distancing? I mean, that's a tough one because the board members are not going to be doing it, obviously. And so I think just post the signs. If you don't have staff there, post the signs to make sure that the owners are following it. And what we really found recently is other neighbors are policing. People might say something like, you guys are violating this by having, this party at the pool. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. I see my daughter Grace is watching. Hi, Grace. Note. Let's see. Any comments? See, oh wow, great. Got people all over the valley. Okay. We have an instructor who's offering that this is for, if you have a fitness center or a weight room or whatever for your association, and is as concerned as the board and operating too early. So offering classes on Zoom, their streaming method is a great idea. I 100% agree. Everybody is looking at, what's available on YouTube or having a live class. If your association, had a fitness classes before, I would really recommend looking into continuing doing that. And we're going to have to see what the state suggests as well on this. But great, Lisa, excellent idea. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I see Karen from Gainey Ranch. It's great to see you on here. Let's see. I see city and county parks have closed off water fountains. Okay, I think we already got that one. That's fine. And really, for your one thing I would like to mention is that can look to what the city and counties are requiring for their pools and their tennis courts, and you might be able to copy a lot of the things they're doing. Assuming that their amenities are like to like with your amenities, because I know these and counties, they are not going to be able to have full-time people there policing them. And so looking at how they're doing signage and looking at what they're requiring to run the pools, this will all be really helpful to all of us, that we can generate good signage and good restrictions in place to manage these amenities once we reopen them. Okay, let's see. Any other questions? The sheet for virtual meetings has been posted to the comments. So if anybody's looking for that new cheat sheet that we just released today, that's here on our Facebook page or also on our website. Great, Linda, first thing, welcome. Hope you'll come back and watch us again. And all of our prior videos on our webpage. It's so great to have you here. I think, let's see. Oh, this is a great question. Does our HOA board need to tell residents when someone in the community has COVID-19? Does the association have responsibility to do contact tracing? Question. So, does the board have a duty to tell residents if someone has COVID-19 in your association? My answer would be no. However, we recommend that if you have cooperation from the resident who has it, that you notify other owners in the association that there is somebody who's tested positive, or if you can get confirmation from a relative if somebody in your community has passed away from COVID-19. And so do you have to do it as a board? No. My feeling is no, you do not have to do it. But is it something that we're recommending? Yes. But there have to be a couple things that you'd have to, boxes you'll need to check before you could ever put a communication like that out there to your membership about testing positive or somebody passing away from COVID-19. Number one, you have to have confirmation from a reliable source that the information is accurate. You should not use the owner's name. You should reiterate what the association is doing to make sure that the common areas are being proper, because the next question after they find out that they're a hazard is, what steps is the association taking to make sure that we're all safe during this pandemic? And, there will be homeowners that will press you asking for the name of the person. You do not give the name of the person. You do not violate any privacy laws, but we are recommending it because what we're finding is that people are finding out about it through other sources, and it's the gossip train, and then the gossip train starts going off in a direction that may not be accurate, and then people start to panic. And we just want to make sure that the association is being straightforward and giving information to the owners that they can rely on to put them at ease. And so we've done a number of those letters, and we have had no negative pushback on those letters as you check all those boxes. Okay, Victoria and Queen Creek. What about playgrounds? How do we keep cleaned enough? The heat may slow use, but every day isn't financially possible. Okay, question, Victoria. So, I think we need to look at what the county and city needs on playgrounds. Let's see if they open them up in city parks and county parks on the 15th. And let's see what sort of, signage they post and what kind of recommendations they have for use. They not open them. It may be something more like gyms that might open up in phases after 15th. If you are not able, if you open your playground up and you're not able to clean that on a regular basis, make sure that you are indicating, what you are doing or doing to, keep this area clean. You may want to suggest that people frequently wash their hands and use social distancing while they're using the playground. You may want to have a hand sanitizing station, but the signage is really going to be key in that situation. I agree. You basically have to have some there during all hours of the day. It could potentially be used. Cleaning it at all times, it's going to be really difficult for a playground for stations to do that. Okay, virtual meeting question. In your virtual meeting cheat sheet agenda, you mentioned a consent agenda. Speak to this. I'm not sure what this is or how to implement. I love this. This is like a silver lining of the pandemic for sure. So for many virtual meetings, associations are, doing a detailed agenda, and they're providing that agenda with the notice of meeting, so that owners know what is going to be discussed at the virtual meeting. And on the agenda, in order to move the meeting along more quickly, what many associations are doing is using a consent agenda. And so for any non-controversial items during the meeting, what they're doing is they're putting it on a consent agenda. And basically what happens is that board members see all of the issues on a piece of paper, like approval of the April 2020 board meeting minutes. And then the next might be approval of a budgeted item, to trim the trees, or, whatever the decisions that are not going to require a lot of discussion and feedback. Maybe it's things that you regularly do. Those all can go on a consent agenda, and one person makes a motion at the meeting to approve the items on the consent agenda. There's a send. If there is any discussion, time the homeowners, they wanted to comment, they can comment, or any board members can comment, and then you vote all of them with that one consent agenda motion. And so you can knock out, a lot of time out of your meetings if you're doing it that way. But consent agendas do not work for controversial items. So don't put something on there that is going to require a lot of discussion or there's a lot of dissent. Consent agenda works for items that are going to be unanimous by the board to begin with. So it's a great little tool that many associations are using to shorten up the meetings and get things. Oh my gosh, all these great happy birthday wishes. Thank you. Thoughts on opening auditoriums for walking during high temps and when groups can't use it. So I'm assuming that the auditoriums are on the campus of your association. I wouldn't open them until the state by the governor. But it's something that you definitely can consider doing. It's, would be like any other amenity in your association. You'll have proper signage. You're going to have, you may have to do additional cleaning. But I'm not opposed to that. If you have been doing that already, pre-summers, and that's something that your association wants to implement, I would just follow the same standards that we would for the other companies, which is, wait until the state tells us that we can open it up, basically, and then plan for the open up with proper signage and what other things you need to do to make sure that you're keeping it safe for everybody to use, cleaning or hand sanitizing stations, etc. Okay, I think that's about it. So I would just like to say in closing, thanks so much for tuning in today. This is our fourth live during the pandemic, and I think we've really kind of stayed ahead of the curve, getting our clients and friends of our firm and many associations in Arizona information that they need to make good decisions. And I'm really happy to say that we're seeing that the boards are really excelling right now and doing a great job continuing to make good decisions for the best interests of their communities. So keep up the good work, everybody. We're almost on the finish line. It looks like things are really going to be opening up. So spend the next week or so planning for the next phase of the association, and recognize that we're here to help if you need any help at any stage in reopening your common areas or dealing with some financial difficulties that the pandemic might be causing your association. So just in closing, thank you much for being here today. We appreciate you caring about your community, and we're here to help you in the future. So reach out to us if you need any help, and we'll look forward to seeing you on another Facebook Live in the very near future. So you're liking our Facebook page so that you receive notices, and make sure that you're subscribing to our memos through our webpage if you want to receive directly invitations from us for these events in the future. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of the week, and I'm sure we'll see you soon with another Facebook Live in the next few weeks. Take care, everybody. Be safe.